Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones, and let the magic begin. Apostasy by Deydralinne, Chapter 22, Portcullis. Explain that again, please? Theo shook his head in confusion. Hermione reached forward and plucked 2 rings from the pile and handed them to Theo and Pansy, both of whom looked at each other nervously before slipping them on. "Please step outside," Hermione directed patiently. Again, the 2 looked at each other nervously, but did as requested all the same. Theo looked so ridiculous with his gumboots that she couldn't muster the urge to do anything other than wrap him in candy floss and cotton wool. So, instead, Hermione pointed her wand at Pansy and sent a rictus sempra her way. Pansy stiffened in anticipation, but nothing happened, as she was wearing her own ring. "Malfoy, you try." Draco didn't hesitate, sending the spell wordlessly, only to be attacked by an invisible force tickling him instead. A particularly ticklish spot on his ribs had him gasping and glaring at her through teary eyes. Hermione bent down close to his face and spoke slowly and clearly, like the idiot he insisted on acting like. "Drop your wand." He did what she said, and the spell broke instantly. He crouched there, gasping for a few minutes. "That's what you 2 have?" Hermione waved away the glamour on her hand to reveal the ring that had remained there hidden since that day in Dartmoor. She looked between Draco, Daphne, and Blaise. "You 3 were a bit trickier. It took some reconfiguring to make a triad of rings work, so if you could test yours out, that would be great." She frowned as she handed the 3 of them their rings and slipped off her own into her pocket. Draco straightened up and followed the movement. "Don't deflect, okay? I need to make sure that it works for each of you," she explained. She started with Blaise, who gave her a nod of confidence. "Cantus." Blaise remained silent while an urge to sing moved slowly up through her windpipe like a bubble ready to burst. Her mouth opened. "I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep." Hermione waved her hand and moved along to Daphne. The witch, whose suit was champagne-colored today with a silky peach-colored blouse underneath, smirked at her. "That was just beautiful, Granger, truly." Hermione rolled her eyes and pointed her wand. "Colossu." Sure enough, Hermione's feet stuck to the ground instead of Daphne's, and when she took a deep breath and sent a Cruciatus curse Draco's way, it struck her like 1,000 tiny razor blades, dissecting her nerves and cutting every cell in her body into 2. Her fingers spasmed and she dropped her wand, falling to her knees, trying not to be sick. It seemed that the effects of the past week still had her drained and vulnerable. "Fucking hell, princess, what did you do that for?" Theo was the first of the group to reach her, gripping her elbow and helping her back to her feet, refusing to let go and leave her unsteady. Draco had closed the distance between them and swooped her up into his arms, one arm under her knees and one behind her back, marching her back into the house where he placed her gently on the lounge suite. His jaw clenched in disapproval while hers chattered. "I needed to make sure that it would hold against stronger spells as well, not just sticking charms," she whispered, suddenly cold. She hadn't realized to what extent she was still recovering. "Safe to say it does." Draco looked down at her, his breath a little heavy and his eyes closed off in pain. "What, Malfoy? Just say it," she whispered. Everyone else who had flooded into the room behind Draco edged away to provide some space, their eyes flickering between the 2 of them. "You have to mean it," he sighed dismissively. "I always mean it, but never at anyone in particular," Hermione exclaimed softly. "I'm angry that this war is still going on. I'm angry that any of us are having to hide who we are. I am angry that the Order is full of hypocritical assholes." Draco nodded his acceptance of her explanation, his face returning to its usual cool, uninterested demeanor. Hermione scoffed and shook her head. "You are a funny man, Draco Malfoy." She shooed his hand away as he fussed over her sitting up. Her muscles still tingled with aftershocks, and her skin ached, but she was starting to feel like herself again. Ginny moved to her, extending a cold can of soda in her hand. "That was stupid," she said. Her voice clipped, but Hermione could see the concern on her face. I'm fine. It was only a second. I've had worse. Besides, it will make me feel better the next time Tiberius tries to kill Theo. Theo shook his head, his curls bouncing as he did. He won't. He will be on his best behavior now. Try to spin mistrust, say that Hermione is lying and that she is trying to get him killed. Hermione frowned at her new friend. You're awfully chill for someone whose dad tried to off them. Theo sank onto the armchair of the sofa next to her with a shrug. Not the first time. Won't be the last. I choose to look at it as his way of saying he loves me. Theo smirked. Hermione chuckled and shook her head. Blaise crossed his arms and looked at the ceiling and thought, Babe? Ginny hit the back of her hand against his arm. Care to share what's going on in that gorgeous head of yours? I was just thinking, Blaise mumbled absently, trailing off mid-sentence. Pansy, Ginny, Daphne, and Draco all looked at each other and shared a chuckle. Shit, mate. Don't do it too much. I think it's melting your brain, Theo jested, pulling laughs from all of them. Blaise glowered at him. Oh, ha, very funny. You should do stand-up comedy. Theo jerked his head at him. Yeah. You want to be my agent? Blaise sighed and rubbed at his face. We have the signatures of the British Prime Minister. Now what? We need a game plan. I was thinking France next. One, because we live here. She didn't miss the way everyone puffed up a little at her claim. And two, because from the little I have seen of the Minister of Magic here, I think we have a good shot of convincing him. Okay, so who else do we know about? Italy is out. Their minister is a total bitch. Strict as hell on the laws there. Blaise summoned a world map from somewhere further in the house and stuck it to the wall, marking the United Kingdom green, Italy red, and France blue. He hesitated before marking Germany in yellow. I can see if Mum has an in there. I'd say the Scandies will all be pretty progressive and open to signing it. Draco crossed his arms and nodded to the map. Sweden, Norway, Denmark all turned blue. A brief pause before Switzerland, Finland, Iceland, and the Netherlands followed suit. I think Ireland will probably agree. I could reach out to Victor, Hermione chuckled at Draco's sudden scowl. See what Bulgaria is likely to think. Blaise smirked and nodded, marking Ireland in blue and Bulgaria in yellow. I visited New Zealand on holiday during Christmas break, 4th year. I got the impression that they would be relaxed enough to go for something like this. Australia too, probably, Blaise mumbled, marking them blue. Ginny's eyes flicked over to Hermione, who was trying to keep her facial expressions neutral. At the end of the day, it wouldn't change anything, not really. She would still never be able to bring them back into her life, and at this stage, she wouldn't want to. She had seen and done too much for them to be able to ever look at her the same way. Killed too many to be their Hermione. It would be kindness to just let them go. Malfoy, your family is old French, and all that posh nonsense. You don't have the minister on call, do you? Ginny teased. Draco arched an eyebrow at her. I know you're joking, but it's possible. I'll have to go to the manor and ask. Ask who? Hermione asked, not following. He gave her an odd look. My mother? Hermione blinked at him. We've been here for how long now, and you have never mentioned your parents. I kind of assumed they were dead, Hermione grumbled. He turned to face her. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had that sort of thing going. What would you like, Granger? Dinner? A formal introduction? We're not engaged. Beside her, Theo scoffed, and Daphne leaned in to whisper a smart comment to Pansy. Draco rounded on the witch and gave her a withering look. Merlin, Malfoy, I'm not asking to suck your dick. I was just saying I was surprised is all. Hermione rolled her eyes, stood on shaky legs, and stretched them out. You haven't mentioned them, and I assumed they were dead. Color me surprised, and skippy for you that they aren't, she snapped, strolling from the room. If anyone needs me, I'll be soaking in my tub, she called over her shoulder. She made it to the second landing before she slowed down, struggling with the excursion. What she really needed was a good 2 or 3 days to just lay in bed and recover. But she didn't have time for that. They had too much to do. Though it did feel good to at least be able to check rings and Tom's face off her list. Ginny caught up to her and helped her up the next 2 flights of stairs without comment. Thank you, she mumbled, panting quietly as they finally reached the top. Come in if you want. Hermione had only reluctantly figured out that by turning one of the dials in her enormous shower, the ground would lower. If she lowered it far enough, it converted into a bathtub. It was easily one of the coolest things she had ever seen, and she had squealed so loudly that Ginny had run in, thinking she was being attacked. Hermione dumped a whole bottle of muscle relaxer on the floor of the shower and turned the dial, stripping off her underwear and stepping down onto the slowly lowering platform. A wave of her wand meant the music floated in from her bedroom and the water poured down, filling the room with steam and sending goosebumps rippling down her skin. I would prefer you didn't take yourself out and leave me without a partner by doing reckless shit, you know, Ginny mumbled, dropping a towel to the edge of the shower and sitting on it to dangle her feet over the edge. Hermione hummed in non-committal agreement. Hermione, I mean it. This isn't the order. You can slow down, Ginny nagged. Blaise was hit, and Theo nearly died. Hermione gave her a pointed look. I wasn't going to let you bury Blaise before you even have a life with him. And we couldn't exactly move forward with our plan for world domination when Voldy was still Voldy. Hermione chuckled. Ginny laughed. I suppose not, but there's no reason now that you can't recover. You're no good to me dead. Hermione sighed in relief as the floor finally stopped sinking and she could sink into the hot water. The muscle relaxant had mingled and had her limbs tingling. Come here, I'll help you wash your hair, Ginny ordered, clearly seeing that Hermione was stiffer than she had let on. Cruciatus doesn't normally impact you so much, she mumbled, as Hermione turned her back to the redhead and floated closer to her. There's been a lot of energy transference lately. I'm running at what I estimate to be approximately 10-20% of my normal capacity, Hermione explained. You're right, I probably do need a few days, she placated. She heard Ginny scowling, but thankfully she offered no opinion on the matter. Not that she needed to. Hermione knew Ginny as well as she knew herself. Ginny would be thinking something along the lines of being thankful that Blaise was now protected, but annoyed because it didn't mean Hermione was any less important to her. She wasn't planning on anything happening to her, but Hermione was glad to know that if it did, Ginny would be taken care of. Blaise would see to it and make sure that she recovered from the loss her death would bring. You're only telling me I'm right so that I'll stop nagging, Ginny stated. Is it working? Hermione asked cheerfully, causing Ginny to snort a laugh. A gloop of liquid landed on Hermione's head before Ginny started massaging it, a mound of thick bubbles growing around her strands. Without warning, Ginny shoved Hermione down under the water and held her there for a few seconds before letting go. Hermione resurfaced, spluttering and drenched, water dripping from her eyelashes, and she gasped, Bitch! Hermione splashed Ginny, whose roars of laughter turned into shrieks as she tried to hold her hand out to shield her from the water being flung her way. It felt nice to spend time with just the two of them. It had become a bit of a luxury these days. Hours must have passed as they joked about the past missions and things they wanted to do once the world opened up. It sounds stupid, but I really want to go to Disneyland, Ginny would say. Hermione would explain that she wanted to swim in the Dead Sea. Could you imagine Malfoy sunbathing on the beach? Hermione giggled, which started an onslaught of teasing from Ginny that Hermione no doubt had imagined that. At some stage, a knock on her bedroom door and a shout from Astoria had her reluctantly climbing out from the tub to dry and dress herself for dinner. Though her stomach seemed happy as the smells of spaghetti wafted to her, making it rumble in anticipation. My mother has extended us her invitation to the minister's annual ball in a week's time. My ailing father is more of a priority to her at present, so she had no intentions to go anyway, Draco stated in a clipped tone. His parents were obviously a subject he didn't like to talk about. Those around the table shifted awkwardly and sipped their drinks with wide, avoidant eyes. Hermione thought about using this as an opportunity to push his buttons, but his stiff shoulders suggested he already anticipated that, and she wanted to keep him on his toes. So she offered him a friendly and polite smile across the table. Well, that is very generous of her. Please extend my thanks and well wishes. With her overly sweet tone seeming to throw him off, she turned victorious to Theo to discuss the need to acquire another prickly pear. Oi, no shop talk at the table tonight, please, Astoria snapped playfully. I would like to make a toast, the blonde announced as she raised her glass of wine. To new friends, better futures, and to finding the missing pieces of our family. I know it's early days still, but you both have come to mean a lot to me, and all of us, I know. She sent a glare to Draco's way through misty eyes, silencing any argument that might have been on the tip of his tongue. We are so glad to have you here in our lives, and I guess, welcome. Cheers. Everyone raised their glasses in acknowledgement. Ginny shot Hermione a look from beside her, and Hermione knew she felt it too. They were home. Cheers.